Well, hey there, parents, coaches, athletes. Andrew Simpson here. Welcome to the special edition of the Master Your Mindset event. As many of you experienced here at PFP just recently, we had this big event to help empower and equip student athletes, as well as their parents and coaches, to take back control of their mindset so they could enjoy their experience in sports and in life, regardless of circumstances. That's the whole premise of this event. We started in 2022. 2023 was our second event, and I personally had laryngitis. And so my voice, which you could probably still hear, it's like 90% there. My voice was terrible at the event, and I couldn't deliver my keynote. But I promised you that I was going to get you that keynote. And so here right now, I'm going to share with you what would have been my presentation because I feel like it's timely. Anxiety, fear, comparison, depression, and ultimately suicide rates are at an all-time high and climbing amongst student athletes. We're making progress in some areas, but it's not enough. It's not enough. And so that's why we created this event, so we could bring together all parties, right? Sports psychologists, coaches, thought leaders, business leaders, parents, coaches, and athletes all together to be able to walk away with tools, strategies, and ultimately new paradigms. I think that's what's needed, a new paradigm around sports, winning, success, which is what we're going to talk about here in a minute, because we've reached a point where we have conformed to the patterns of this world, and we are all just doing the same thing. And as a result, athletes are quitting sports at an alarming rate, unlike any other time in history. It just continues to go in the wrong direction. Burnout, fear, again, all these things I've talked about. So I want to share with you guys my presentation. I want to get right into it. Are you good with that? Are you good if we just dive right in? Here we go. So John Wooden, 1934. John Wooden, arguably the best coach in the history of athletics. He coined a definition of success, and I'm going to share with you that definition because it is so important that we too, athletes, parents, coaches, that we too have a definition of success that is within our control to attain. Success is peace of mind. That was the first part of his definition. He said, number one, above all else, success is peace of mind, not anxiety of mind, not stressed and depressed of mind, but hey, at least I'm successful and at least other people look at me as achieving a lot. No. It's a genuine peace of mind. That's the first requirement if you want to feel successful in this definition, that you have a peace of mind. So athlete, let me ask you, do you have peace? Or is that why you came to the event? Is that why you're listening to this right now? Because you're still searching for that peace like you had when you were younger playing the game. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction. Self-satisfaction, not this whole never be satisfied. Good is never good enough. Keep grinding. Don't feel successful. You got to move towards the next thing. I personally used to have that mentality of never be satisfied until I realized when I get to the end of my career, if I was never satisfied, you see where I'm going with this? That would be terrible. It would be a miserable career. And so John Wooden said, success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction, actually feeling satisfied with your progress and with how far you've come. Are you satisfied? Or are you never content? Are you never content? Are you never pleased with yourself? Success is peace of mind, which is the direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best. Your best, athlete, not in comparison to somebody else and their best, not in relation to where someone else is on their journey, and not in comparison to where you want to go in the future, because you can't control that right now. Knowing that you did your best, everything before today, do you feel like you've done your best? And if you haven't, are you working on it? Because he said it's in knowing that you did your best. So I'm going to go again. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best. And then this is how he ends his definition of success: to become the best that you are capable of becoming. I have limitations. You have limitations. We were not all given the same capacity in all areas of athletics. And we have to recognize what our limitations are, recognize that we are stronger in certain areas than other athletes are. We've got certain gifts and tendencies than other athletes do. And we have to know ourselves and figure out, what is it about me that I can become great at? Because the worst thing is an athlete who breaks down and becomes anxious and stressed because they're just comparing themselves to who others are. And in reality, you just have to focus on becoming the best you are capable of becoming. And so that is John Wooden's definition of success. And I believe the reason you came here today, the reason why you may be feeling the pressure to live up to expectations and the stress of sports. And here's another thing. Over the last couple of years, have you found yourself enjoying sports just a little bit less each year? Your passion, your joy is going down just a little bit each year, and you're normalizing it. And other people are telling you, hey, it's just part of the grind. Hey, it's just not going to be all fun. And I would argue that if this is your definition of success, which is within your control, you can enjoy sports like you always have. Your passion can be high. It's not going to be easy. Like this kind of a definition, do you realize how hard you've got to push against society to have this definition of success? It might require deleting social media. It might require, putting the blinders on and just focusing on this. But I would also say this definition, in my opinion, is just a little bit off the mark. John Wooden, this was his definition, but my personal one, this is what I add. I add this to mine, and helping as many others as I possibly can along the way. Because if you grow, that's what this is. This is growth and reflection that you did what you could to grow. If you grow and you contribute, help others along the way, then you will be successful. And if that's part of your definition, I believe that you can control this, and nothing will feel as good as if you help others along the way. So are you helping others, athlete? Are you so focused on getting yours, become the best you can be, that you're stepping on people to get it? Or that you've just ignored the fact that this is what actually leads to feeling good about sports? Are you enjoying your experience in sports? If not, this definition might need to be yours. So I want, by the way, this definition, honestly, if this is your definition, then only you're going to truly know if you're successful or not. Isn't that great? No coach can tell you if you were successful. No teammate, no newspaper, no reporter, no press, nobody, no college coach. Nobody can tell you that you're successful. Only you will truly know, because that means you did what you could do to control the outcome. All right, so let's personalize this. I want you to read this out loud with me. I'm assuming you're still with me. Success is, go ahead, read after me, or read with me out loud. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing I did my best to become the best that I am capable of becoming. I want you to write that definition down, type it up, stick it on your mirror, put it in your bedroom, and read it every single day. I'm dead serious. I don't know if you can see me on the screen right now, but I hope you can. Every day, athlete, read this every single day. Mom, dad, coach, this should be your definition as well. This is the new standard. This is the new norm. If we're going to avoid conformity, and we're going to make sure we take back youth sports and give them back to the athlete, and by youth sports, I mean all the way up to college. Until you're getting paid for this, it's not a job. College athletes, I know some of y'all are getting paid. I think this definition would still serve you well. I want you to read this every single day. So step number 1 to mastering your mindset is to change your definition of success. Because if the ladder is not leaning against the right wall, every step we take just gets us to the wrong place faster. Don't climb a ladder that's leaned up against the wrong wall, because you're not going to feel successful like you think you are when you get there. All right. 1986, James Carse writes the book, Finite and Infinite Games. It was so good and so relevant to every athlete that's watching this right now. So relevant that I had to include it in my book that just came out, Finite and Infinite Games. Because a lot of us, we've got the wrong mentality around the game that we're playing. We're actually in the wrong game. And if you don't know the rules to the game you're playing, how are you going to win? You see, in the finite game, James Carse defines a finite game, which means that the player playing it has a finite mindset. You with me? In the finite game, there's a couple things that define a finite game. Number one, there's a start and a stop. There's an end to the finite game, which means athletes with a finite mindset who are playing a finite game, they always feel like they're going against the clock. They're tense. They're anxious. I worked with an athlete named Sarah, and she was always just tense and anxious when I asked her about sports and how she was doing, because she was always focused on like the end of the next chapter and the end of the next. And it was like, if I don't get this by the time I get to college, if I don't achieve this, then it's all over for me. Doesn't that sound like a finite mindset? Because in a finite game, when you're playing a finite game, there's always an end. There's a stop point. In the finite game, there's only one winner and one loser. It's like a game of chess, right? There's a winner and a loser, which means there's no benefit to losing. When you lose, it's just like you lost. That's a finite game. In a finite game, there are limited resources. Only one person can win. Only one person can be the best. That's when you have the finite mindset. And so you get selfish. Just hear me out. You get selfish, you get tense, and you get anxious. That's what it's like to play the finite game. But he argued, and it's an amazing argument, he argued that there's another kind of a game, and it's more of a mindset than a game. It's called the infinite game. And I've come across just a couple, not many. I've worked with last I checked, over 2,000 athletes in a mindset setting, right? In mindset sessions, over 2,000 athletes. And I've only found a couple had an infinite mindset, but it was interesting because those athletes, they were just more relaxed. They played at their best more often than the other athletes did. They weren't stressed when they made a mistake. They didn't beat themselves up and get all down on themselves. Like, they just seemed to keep going. And it seemed like they were always just learning and growing and contributing, learning, growing, and contributing. That's because in an infinite game, it goes on forever. There's no ending to it. There's no ending to it. There's many players that are going for different goals and victories and successes, and there's winning available for whoever wants it. In the infinite game, get this. In the infinite game, the point of playing is to keep the game going. Let me say it again. In the infinite game, the whole point of playing is to perpetuate the game. There's resources everywhere. You just got to keep going and getting resources. You got to get fueled up. You got to rest and relax at times. You got to take a break. In the finite game, you don't take breaks because you're always scared. You feel like you're going to fall behind. You fear falling behind, so you never stop. But in the infinite game, you're like, hey, sometimes sharpening my axe for a little while, sharpening my saw is the best way to come back and chop the tree down faster, right? So in the infinite game, and I'll tell you one of the athletes that I worked with who had an infinite mindset. Her name's Rachel, softball player. She always told me, Andrew, sports are temporary. When she got an accolade, she's like, sports are temporary. But I'm like, well, what do you mean though? Like, that's not really an infinite mindset. She's like, yeah, but like this chapter's temporary. She's like, I plan on playing forever. I'm going to keep going. But this chapter right here, if it's amazing, I'm not going to let it get me too high. If it's terrible, I'm not going to let it get me too low, because this chapter's temporary. I'm going to keep playing this game for a long time. It's like, yes, that's what the infinite game is all about. And so, athlete, my question for you is, have you been viewing sports with a finite or infinite mindset? Because master your mindset, step number 2. If you're going to master your mindset, you've got to choose an infinite mindset. You have to. Otherwise, you're going to be tense, stressed, anxious, nervous all the time. With the infinite mindset, it's about growing. Every failure or setback is setting you up. It's getting you stronger. It's building your armor. All right. Last but not least, I am a recovering perfectionist. recovering perfectionist. And another way to say that, athlete, if you've never heard this term, an idealist. I see things as they could be or should be, not as they really are. I rarely ever see things as they really are. And that is a great thing in some ways. But man, if you're an athlete that's been beating yourself up for not being perfect, if you have been lacking satisfaction, and parents, we gotta look within on this one. Have we been fostering an achievement-based household? Achievement's not bad, but if that's the primary target, achievement, then I can predict the emotional state of your athlete almost exactly. And I can predict their path. I know exactly what their path will look like. It's one of two paths. They're either going to continue down that path of achievement without ever being satisfied, and they're going to burn out, and they're going to resent sports and possibly the people that made sports miserable for them. They're either going to go down that path, or they're going to burn out and quit abruptly and get angry and bitter about it. And same outcome. So those are the two paths. But then the other path is what I'm about to share with you right now. It's developing what is called the gap and the gain, and it's developing gain thinking. See, this square in the middle is where I am today. And I'm going to teach you an exercise. I'm going to teach you an exercise that I've personally adopted, and I do it every 30 to 90 days. Between 30 and 90 days, I do this, especially when I start to feel myself only looking at the negative or only looking at how far I fall short. I do this exercise. In the middle is where you are today. But over here to the right is your bigger and better ideal future. Everybody, every athlete I know, they have this bigger and better ideal future in their mind. They know where they eventually want to be. So my question for you is, what is that future? What is that future? Is it college sports? Is it getting first team all conference in college sports? Is it being the best athlete to ever play the game? Is it professional sports? Is it being the best athlete on your club team? Whatever your bigger and better future is, it's in the future, isn't it? It's out there. It's out there. And there's a space between where you are today and your bigger and better future, and it's called the gap. It's called the gap. And what happens is we focus on the gap. We focus on how far we fall short, and it results in some emotions. Focusing on the gap results in some emotions. And I've asked hundreds of athletes this question. So I know almost exactly the emotions that you personally experience when you focus on the gap. Overwhelmed, discouraged, anxious, stressed. But then when you focus on the gap, right, and you focus on your bigger future, it produces a positive emotion too, doesn't it? It makes you feel motivated. Makes you feel motivated. And so 80% of the emotions that athletes experience when they focus on their future and they focus on how far they fall short based on where they are today, 80% of the emotions they experience are negative. And since your feelings are your fuel, since your feelings, what you feel, if I feel overwhelmed, doesn't matter what I think about. If I feel overwhelmed, that's my fuel. And so I'm going to show up overwhelmed. Since that is true, being a gap thinker can only get you so far until you're running on fumes. There's a better way, though. I learned this a couple years ago. I learned that there's a third place, and that place was where I used to be. And I'm telling you guys, this is a habit that has probably been ingrained with you if you're a parent, 40, 50 years old, whatever. It might have been ingrained with you for 30 years. So I can understand how hard it's going to be to break it. I was about 12 years of this kind of thinking. I used to be a gap thinker for about 12 years after high school, really. But there's a better way. Where I used to be. And there's a space between where I used to be and where I am today, isn't there? It's called the gain. When I do this exercise with athletes in a workshop setting or one-on-one in a mindset session, I do this and then I ask them a couple questions. Number one, what are 5 accomplishments in your life, things that you're most proud of? What are 5 things in your life that you're proud of? And I get them into this mindset of gain, right? Gain thinking, focusing on how well I've done. things that I've accomplished, things that I've overcame, fears that I broke past, injuries that I worked through. What are the 5 things in your life that you're most proud of? And it takes them a while, guys. It's actually kind of sad. It's kind of sad because it takes them so long to come up with 5. But once they come up with them, they get on a roll. And then I ask them this: what are 3 to 5 ways you've made progress in the last 12 months? Think about over the last year. What are your progress areas? What gains have you made? How are you better today than you were 12 months ago? And if we're talking about their sport, it's like, well, you know what? I'm faster. If I think about where I was a year ago, I'm actually faster. Man, I had 17 goals this year, and last year I only had 13. Sure, my friend had 28, but when I just focus on how far I've came, okay, I guess I did make progress in the last 12 months. And you know what? I went to a couple camps and I got some experience in front of college coaches. I didn't get recruited necessarily. My friend did. Oh, wait. Gain thinking. What are the gains? Okay, I went to these camps and I learned what it takes and I got some experience. So that's one way I made progress. Oh, you know what? I became a more confident communicator. I 2 times I talked to my coaches when I used to never talk to my coaches at all because I was scared. But 2 times I did. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's progress. And I get excited for them. Like, you should get excited for your kid. Coach, you should get excited for your players when they've got these little wins, because that's how you get big wins. A bunch of little wins first, and then you get the big wins. And I start getting pumped for them, man. And they can feel me. They can feel my energy. And then I ask them, in the past 3 to 4 months, in the past season, how have you grown? How have you improved? What were some personal wins? And guys, I'm not kidding you. As they start to talk about this and write it on paper, I watch their physiology change. I watch them from being slumped over, having this blah look on their face, to sitting up taller. Their shoulders come back. Their posture improves. Their frown turns upside down, right? They actually start to smile. Their eyes get bigger. And hey, athlete, when you're in that kind of a state, when you feel like that, tell me the feelings and emotions you experience. What are you feeling now after you're thinking about all these ways you made progress? I'm proud. I'm really proud of myself, actually. I'm happy. I feel confident. I actually feel confident, and I believe that I can reach my big goals. After thinking about how far I've come, get out of my way. I've got this. You think I'm joking? That's how this is. That's what this exercise does for them, especially when you believe in it, coach, parent. If you're just doing it to try to be like, oh yeah, I mean, maybe it'll do something to your mind and like everyone gets a trophy kind of deal. No. If you believe in this, like I now believe in this, and you get pumped for them, they're going to start to feel these things. And the one thing that I felt there was a positive emotion from focusing on the gap, I feel it focusing on the gain too. If you are going to master your mindset, which really means, honestly, like we just called this event Master Your Mindset because it's catchy and people would buy into it. But really, this is about mastering your emotions. People just wouldn't come to something like that yet. Eventually, it'll become normalized and people will come to that. But this is about mastering your emotions, because your emotions that you feel during your sports career determine your experience. And your experience is what ultimately matters. The experience you made it for yourself and the experience that you gave to others as a result of what you did and went through. If we're going to do that, we're going to have to become a gain thinker. We're going to have to shift from gap to gain thinking. It's a must. Trust me, I'm an idealist. I'm a perfectionist. This exercise was hard for me. It drove me nuts in the beginning. I'm like, yeah, but what's up with all that? Like, reflect on the positives and think about the wins, until I started doing it. And I got about a year into this process. It might take you 90 days, by the way, before you really start to feel it. I started doing it, and it changed my entire mindset and my emotions. And I started to experience a higher level of joy, 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 in my everyday life, even when things weren't going well in business or things weren't going well at home. I was able to shift so fast into a positive mindset because I could reflect fast on where have I made progress, what's going well, what's working. Because here's one thing I know, last thing from me today. Our brain does 3 things really well. It looks for what's wrong, it looks for what's missing, and it looks for what could go wrong. That's default. It's going to naturally do that. And so we have to battle against it with some of these exercises. Number one, you've got to change your definition of success. The world will tell you to only focus on what's not going well or to chase somebody else. No. You've got to battle against it by changing your definition of success. Number two, the world will tell you, got to get it now. It's going to be gone soon. It's going to be out of your fingertips. You got to get yours now. Just focus on you. Don't rest. Don't recover. No. If you're going to master your mindset, you got to choose an infinite mindset. And then lastly, stop being a gap thinker. Give that nonsense up. Gap thinking is for losers. Gain thinking is for winners, because when you think with the gain mindset, you get more, you get closer to filling that gap to begin with. So, my friends, that was my presentation. That is what I wanted to share with you. This is how you master your mindset. You have the other recordings from the other presenters. Please go back and watch those again and again and again and do the work, because your mindset doesn't improve in a day. It improves daily. You got to keep working against the culture that we're in. You got to keep doing things differently. If you feel like you're fitting in with the sports culture and you feel like you're fitting in with your teammates and everyone else, that should be a red flag. That should be a warning sign. Together, we can change the game. We can change the entire shape of youth sports and change your experience one day at a time. Thank you for being part of this event. Go do the work. Talk to you soon.